Our whole universe was in a hot, dense state that nearly 14 billion years ago expansion started. Wait, the earth began to cool, the autotrophs began to drool, Neanderthals developed tools, we built a wall. We built the pyramids. Math, science, history, unraveling the mystery that all started with a big bang. Hey!
Alright, you guys, I finally finished my dissertation in solar electricity, and I think I nailed it.
Oh, that's great, Howard. Congratulations.
Seeing as you wrote the dissertation, I'm sure it's far from perfect.
No, it's really good now. I edited it, then re-edited it, then re-edited it, and I think it's perfect.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Well, here, take a look then.
Here we go.
Well, as far as I see, your facts seem to be correct enough.
Huh.
But your grammar is atrocious. Slightly appalled at you, Howard. You've managed to go even below the level of expectation I have for you.
Prove it to me.
I'm so glad you asked. Let's begin with your use of ellipsis. You've completely and unabashedly broken every rule there is about them somewhere within this dissertation. But before I run away with myself, one must ask the question, what is an ellipsis? An ellipsis, or a series of 3 space periods, is used to signify the purposeful deletion of a word or words from a quotation. If at all possible, these should be used sparingly, as they will quickly become an eyesore for those of us who have to read your mediocre dissertation. If a sentence ends in an ellipsis, the 3 points cannot take the place of the punctuation mark. So, hypothetically, if I were to finish a sentence with a quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet, say, to be or not to be, that is the question. But did not want to quote anything further from this play, I would need to punctuate the quote like this. The 4th period is the period which ends the sentence. Its place could also be taken by a question mark or an exclamation point, depending on the context. And where you quote Jim DePeso from the middle of his sentence, these ellipsis points aren't necessary. When you need to remove words from the beginning of a quote, just merge the quotation into the sentence that you were saying before. Also, don't capitalize the first word of the quotation. This will show your reader that you've integrated the quotation like a competent person, not like an engineer.
Okay, Sheldon, well, thanks to the grammar lesson, but I really gotta get.
Do you want to know another thing about ellipsis?
Okay, Sheldon, I really think Howard has to go home.
When omitting lines from a passage of verse, instead of the usual 3 periods, one must use enough periods to line up with the length of the rest of the lines, much like this. And if one would like to express that thought as trailing off, the 4th period at the end of the ellipsis is not necessary. One must only put a space between the last word of the thought and the first period.
Well, thanks, Sheldon. I'm just gonna take my dissertation home and question my life.
And if your life is anything like your grammar skills, ponder away.
Alright, Sheldon. I took your advice. How's it now?
Howard, really? Even a fetus knows that if you want to isolate a word, you put it in quotations. Like, do you call this quality work?
What if I have a phrase or multiple words or even a cliche? Then what?
Then you put them in italics, like everybody knows that Aquaman is not significant or inconsequential.
See you and Penny.
Yep.
So what exactly did you see in her that made you attracted to her?
That's pretty personal, Howard. Why do you ask?
It's for a study I'm conducting.
Okay. Her looks, for one.
She's okay. I mean, she's not terrible looking.
Hey, don't use light toadies to describe my girlfriend.
I retract my first opinion. I apologize. Please, continue.
Well, to compare to Amy Farrah Fowler, who's disgusting and smart, Penny is her antithesis in that she's beautiful and maybe not the smartest.
Plausible.
Okay, Howard, that's enough. There's no actual study, is there?
I don't know what you're talking about. Hello, fellow classmates. Look at Mr. LaFerrier. Now back to me. Now back to LaFerrier. Now back to me. Sadly, he is not me. But if he used Parapistokians like me, he could sound like me. But what's Parapistokian? Look to your left and ponder for a moment. Moment's over. Still don't know what it means? Parapistokian is a figure of speech in which the latter part of a sentence or phrase is surprising or unexpected in a way that causes the reader to reframe or reinterpret the first part. Still confused? Here's an example. You don't need a parachute to skydive. You only need a parachute to skydive twice. Need another? A train station is where a train stops. A bus station is where a bus stops. At my desk, I have a workstation. Get it now? Good. I'm on a train.
Oh, Leonard, there you are. I need your advice.
Sure, Sheldon, what's up?
I wrote a blog about Howard's writing skills. Tell me what you think.
Sheldon, you really need to work on your dialogue.
What?
Don't worry, there's 7 easy steps you can take to create stronger dialogue. First, authenticity before all else. Make sure your dialogue seems natural. Second, avoid semicolons, because no one actually talks like that. And third, try to only use verbs at the end of your quotes that express both a facial expression and a tone.
Like what?
Like, she laughed. You can see the girl laughing in your mind.
So to keep my dialogue natural, should I put in grunts and noises like Raj makes when a girl walks in?
Yeah, using noises like mm-hmm or uh-huh makes your dialogue more natural. And you should also allow the readers to make 90% of your exclamation points and italics in their minds.
Okay, what else?
The last thing to remember is to set off a person's name in commas if you are first introducing them. And also, feel free to put commas in places where people tend to naturally pause, even if it may not be grammatically correct.
So I could tell Howard, go to school, comma, get a natural degree.
Yeah, sure, Sheldon. Hey Howard, how'd your essay going?
Not good. I don't know the best way to put a quote in from one of my NASA coworkers because I don't remember who said it.
Oh, that's easy. Just use a blind quote.
What are those?
Well, a blind quote is something that reporters use a lot of times to protect their sources. It's where instead of putting a name in, you just replace that with like a vague source name. So instead of saying, my friend so-and-so said, you would say, a NASA employee said.
Alright, I think I might have done that. Here, look at this. One NASA employee was outraged. Rocket prices are way too high.
No, Howard, that's an orphan quote. An orphan quote isn't directly given to a specific source. Since you put the quote in a separate sentence from the source, there's no transition, and the quote appears to be left authorless. If you want to do a blind quote properly, you need to punctuate it like this. One outraged NASA employee said, "Rocket prices are way too high."
Oh, so a blind quote is directly attributed to the source, whereas in an orphan quote, the source and the quote are in two different sentences?
Exactly.
Hey Leonard, what you doing?
Working on my poetry essay I have to write for a class.
Oh.
What now, Sheldon?
Well, when quoting poetry, if it's 2 lines or less, you put them in quotations.
Yeah, I know. And I always start the lines with capital letters unless the poet wrote them that way.
Then you must remember virgule.
Virgules?
Of course, You use them to distinguish the end of one line of poetry and the beginning of another. They look like this.
Alright, well thanks, Sheldon.
Yeah.
Okay, Sheldon.
Well then.
Sheldon, here. I rewrote my intro. How's it look now?
Howard, you must use a comma for introductory phrases like he said or he replied.
Okay, well, what do I do if I use a quote to prove a full statement I've already made?
Colon.
Alright, well, what if my quote extends past one sentence?
Colon.
And what if I have to indent the quote because it's too hefty?
Colon. Honestly, Howard, is this going to take all night?
Oh, okay. What about this? What if my lead-in ends with the word that, like the old man said that? Colon or comma?
Neither. In that case, you must dispense with introductory punctuation. Buzzing.
Next week on My Strange Addiction.
I'm so worried about my daughter. She has an addiction, a strange addiction, to quoting.
I think quotes have always been an addiction for me. I mean, things like block quotes have always been a high for me. The way that block quotes are single space as opposed to double space MLA format. And the way that block quotes are introduced with a colon. I'm just addicted to thinking about them.
It's not healthy the way she's always reminding me to indent prose quotes that exceed 2 lines. I'll be making dinner, and she suddenly goes off about how indenting serves the same purpose as quotation marks, so using quotations is redundant. These quotes are consuming and ruining her life.
All new My Strange Addictions, Fridays at 10.
Yes, Penny, I have the supplies. Yes, I bought the cute stickers. No, they're not the cheap ones they put out in front to sell them first. Yeah. Okay. Bye.
What was that all about?
Penny wanted me to buy some supplies for her English project, but I couldn't understand what she was saying at the end. She just started rambling off letters.
I have decided to dedicate my afternoon to your desperate need for education and abbreviations, rather than creating my stop-motion picture with my Star Trek action figures, since, after all, I have a PhD in abbreviations. Here, I've illustrated it for you. Let's begin. C from the Latin term circa, meaning about, approximately. CF derived from confer, meaning compare. Chap, obviously short for chapter. Cont, continued. ED is edited by. EG derived from exempli gratia, for example. IBID, or ibidem, in the same place, i.e., id est, means that is. L stands for line, and you use LL if you refer to more than one line. LC, of course, means lowercase. Capital MS is the same as manuscript. NB, or nota bene, meaning note well, which I do often. Opset, or opera citato, in the work cited. P means page. Pub means published. Vis, derived from vigilicet, means namely. Vol means volume. VS, derived from and meaning verses. Well, there you have it. Now you're fully educated in abbreviations.
Alright, Leonard, is there anything else I should remember from my essay?
Just one thing. Make sure you never put a big quote like this in the middle of your sentence. It confuses the reader.
Is there anything else I should know?
No, I think that's it. If you follow all those rules, you'll be writing with style.